The number one thing that people in India need to have is protein awareness. Protein is basically stimulating satiety directly from either the hormones, incretins from the GI tract, or directly in your amino acids in the bloodstream in your brain. That's how protein is making you feel fuller. Low fat and fermented dairy is great. All of your legume products are great.
Now, Ted, I want to talk about the elephant in the room. What about the P ratio? Why are you obsessed with it? And I want you to simplify for us Indians.
It turns out that almost all animals have an extremely powerful protein satiety drive, and they will usually combine foods in their environment to get a certain amount of protein and a certain amount of non-protein energy. That could be either carbs or fats. It almost doesn't matter. Different animals have different carb to fat spectrum. So your carnivores are really just going to be eating fat, and your herbivores are really just going to be eating carbs. And an omnivore like a human is right in between, and it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is the ratio of protein to non-protein energy, which is carbs and fats. So for example, if I take a bear and I lock it in a cage and I give it a protein source like a skinless chicken breast or something, and I give it an energy source like just bread or whatever, the bear will eat some of both, and it will very nicely combine the two and come up with a pretty good ratio of protein to non-protein energy. It's going to self-select a ratio that's pretty optimal for its health and functioning. And we do this with rats and mice and lab rodents, right? We give them protein and a non-protein energy, and they'll just combine the two, and they very nicely create a good mixture that's optimal for their health and function and reproductive abilities. And they're pretty much just going to mix and match in their environment to get a good ratio of the two, which is what every animal on Earth does all day, all the time. They're combining foods in their food environment and coming up with something that is basically okay. The problem is if I have this bear locked up, now let's say all I feed it is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? Which are like, 8% protein, 6% protein. The bear needs enough protein. It's going to be hungry until it gets enough protein because that's how the system works. So it has to massively overeat calories from bread and jelly and peanut butter and all these low protein things. Bread's like 11% protein and peanut butter is like 8% protein and jelly is like 0% protein. And it just has to overeat all these calories to get enough protein. And it is just going to automatically overeat. It doesn't want to overeat. It's not trying to be fat. It just has to. It's literally forced to overeat calories in order to achieve enough protein to function and to not be hungry. So that is what happens. If your food environment has a low protein percent, you are literally forced to overeat in order to get enough protein to function and to not be hungry. The other two factors are also at play here, where the energy density is much higher than the bear's natural foods. So it's going to be used to eating a certain weight and volume of food. It's going to eat 10 pounds of food. If that's berries, it's half the energy density, but if it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, it's going to eat twice as much. So you have the energy density driving it. There's also a really hedonic combination of carbs and fats there that the bear never gets in the wild. So it's going to say, hey, this stuff is tasty. This is way better than just like raw salmon and like, uncultivated berries. This is really good. So it's going to massively overeat for all of those reasons. But the number one reason, the primary reason, is protein and protein dilution. And so I wrote this book, The PE Diet, that really just breaks eating down into protein and non-protein energy. And so like plants make all food on Earth, right? Plants make their own food. Plants make all of the food for animals. Every animal is constantly eating other living things. And you're either eating an animal that eats plants or both. And what plants do is they perform photosynthesis, which is taking solar energy, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and creating carbon chains of energy that could either be carbs or fats interchangeably, hydrocarbons or carbohydrates, fats and carbs. But the second thing plants are doing is sucking nitrogen for protein and minerals out of soil and incorporating them into amino acids that animals have to ingest. We can't make all of them ourselves. So the plant is basically doing two things. It's providing nitrogen and protein and minerals and these nutrients, and then a bunch of energy from photosynthesis, which could be carbs or fats. So you could really just look at eating in general in terms of protein and minerals, which are nutrients, and then non-protein energy, which is just carbon chains of either carbs or fats that we store in two different compartments and then burn in our mitochondria pretty much the same way.
So I would like to know more about the PE diet. Now the three pillars of PE diet are: we have to increase the protein percentage, decrease the carbohydrate frequency, and avoid high fat, high carb and high density energy density food. So now coming to the first pillar, which is the increasing the protein percentage. There was an interesting overeating study which you mentioned in the book. Like if you overeat protein, it is impossible to overeat that. If you overeat the fat, it is very possible to not stop. Same is with the carbohydrate. So I would like to know why it is the truth about why this is the truth. Because the thing is, if we can't overeat the protein, then what is the issue with the other two? You're getting it?
Right. So first of all, protein, when you eat protein and digest it, the amino acids enter your bloodstream and your brain detects those, and it just gives you a sense of satiety. Protein also stimulates incretins in your small intestine, which is like, your GLP-1 and all of these weight loss drugs like Ozempic now are basically using an incretin hormone that is increased in your small intestine when you eat protein. That also affects your brain and tells you, hey, you've eaten enough, you're not hungry. So protein is basically stimulating satiety directly from either the hormones, incretins from the GI tract, or directly in your amino acids in the bloodstream in your brain. So that's how protein is basically making you feel fuller. Carbs and fats don't seem to have as good an effect for satiety. And then there's this hedonic combination that I mentioned, where it actually,
dopamine.
Right, it spikes dopamine in your brain and can be actually lightly addictive for some people. So like, even if you ate enough protein, if someone gives you donuts, you're going to eat some donuts too. So there's a push and pull to overeating. You're forced to overeat to get enough protein to not be hungry, but then you're hedonically craving these carbs and fats together. And the combination of the two is driving the entire obesity epidemic. The secret is to simultaneously target protein and eat more protein intentionally, while also being very careful with protein dilution from refined carbs or refined fats, and especially careful with the combination of refined carbs and refined fats together. That's going to hedonically make you overeat.
I want to specifically ask you about the second pillar, which is decreasing the carbohydrate frequency. Now, in a diet, traditional diet of Indian setting, there is a lot of high carb heavy meals and food items. So what's the reason of decreasing the frequency also, and also choosing a better quality of carbohydrate?
Right. So if, let's say I just eat a refined carb all by itself, I don't eat any protein, I don't eat any fat, I just eat something sugary. I just drink juice for breakfast. You get a big glycemic spike, and that's shutting off fat oxidation. And then as your blood sugar falls, some people get really hungry. They might even feel hypoglycemic, like they're shaky and they have to eat. When you just eat a high glycemic refined carb all by itself, you get such a big blood sugar rise that you can get a little bit of a hypoglycemia on the other side and just be hungry again. And so like 2 hours later, you're hungrier than maybe if you hadn't eaten anything. So imagine I have just a glass of juice for breakfast and nothing else. It's a lot of calories. And then my blood sugar goes up, and then 2 hours later, it's kind of low, and I'm actually hungrier than if I hadn't had anything for breakfast, possibly. And so that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are just snacking on carbs all day long. They're just grazing on carbs. They can feel their blood sugar coming back down when the carbs wear off, and they're driven to eat more carbs, and they're just eating carbs all day long. And you can you can kind of reverse that by either just eating, every time you eat, eating a bunch of protein with it, or more fiber, or even a little bit of fat, or something that prevents this high glycemic spike, mostly protein and fiber. But you can also just eat less carbs, either intermittent fasting. One nice thing about intermittent fasting is it seems to cut down on snacking, so people aren't grazing on carbs all day, and they get a little more used to just burning stored body fat. They also get a little more in touch with hunger and fullness. You know when you're really hungry versus, oh, I'm hungry because my snack wore off 2 hours ago. My carb snack is gone. I want more crackers or something. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons why I feel like the carbohydrate issue is a particular problem, because so many people just snack on carbs with no protein in them at all, and then they're hungrier later than if they hadn't eaten to begin with.
So you mentioned that there are a lot of Indian diaspora patients in your practice. So what are the practical implications from the PE diet you like to share with them? There is a pattern, clear pattern in the Indian household and cultural tradition with respect to the diet. So I want you to give the practical takeaways of your PE diet.
The number one thing that people in India need to have is protein awareness, right? So it's terrible. I have patients and I'm like, okay, are you eating enough protein? What are you eating for protein? Do you get protein? And they're like, oh, sure. I have an egg every morning for breakfast. Every morning I have an egg. I'm like, that's 6 grams of protein. Are you kidding me? I'm like, you want, 30 grams of protein per meal, ideally. So that's 6 grams that's a good start, but it's horrible. And then people are like, well, I eat nuts. I eat peanut butter. I eat nuts. I'm like, nuts. Nuts are a great fat source. Peanut butter is a great fat source. It has extraordinarily tiny amount of protein. It's really not, it shouldn't be considered a protein source at all. So I have these people who really are just not aware of how little protein they're eating. And the first thing I encourage people to do is just start by being aware. How many grams of protein are in each food you're eating? How does that compare to the calories in that food? What's the protein percentage of all these foods? And then how many grams did you eat per meal? The idea is every single time you eat, protein should be the focus. The whole question is, what protein source am I eating at this meal, at this snack? Where's the protein? How much protein? What percentage of the calories is protein? If you're trying to lose weight and reverse diabetes, you want 30% of your calories coming from protein. Protein should be the main focus of every eating occasion, and that is something a lot of people are not doing. So if you want to, if you go, I have a website, proteinpercent.com, which just visually graphs out the protein percent of any food. You can type in foods, you can search for foods, you can graphically see them, you can enter the macros and see what the protein percentage is and where it lies on the PE, protein energy spectrum. So yeah, proteinpercent.com is a good resource there. But the idea is to get protein percentage higher, target protein with every meal. And unfortunately, so protein intakes are pretty low in America. Like your average female is eating maybe 60 something grams of protein a day. It's even lower in India, unfortunately.
Yep.
Especially.
Actually, the exact statistic I have just researched, it is around 40 grams.
Right.
Just 40 grams. It is 0.6 gram per kg body weight. The RDA for the US, it is 3/4 of that.
Yeah, it's quite terrible. It's especially bad in women, and it's just absolutely awful. And, and part of it is, so I was raised vegetarian as a Seventh-day Adventist. I was raised in I had a religious, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian background. So I understand that. But I also think that it's not helping anybody. You know what I mean? Being religiously, I have patients from India who have religious beliefs that require them to be a certain amount of vegetarian or not or eat certain animal products. And that's not, it makes it more difficult. You have to work even harder. It can be done, but you really have to eat a lot of soybeans and tofu and edamame, and you're pretty much having to eat a ton of legumes, or even better, a concentrated protein source from legumes like tofu or seitan, or some sort of, concentrated protein source. But it just makes it that much more difficult. And then so I just encourage people from India, whatever protein you're willing to eat, just eat a ton of that. Make that the focus of every meal. If you eat eggs, just eat not only eggs, but egg whites. If you consume dairy, then, Greek yogurt, any kind of fermented dairy, any kind of lower fat dairy, any combination of the two. So all of your low fat and fermented dairy is great. All of your legume products are great. And then anything that anybody's willing to eat that's meat or fish or seafood is amazing. But it's just protein awareness is the most important thing. I think it's the starting point for everybody.
So there is another topic I would like to discuss about, which is hunger. There are 3 types of hunger, as you mentioned. There is a nutrient hunger, energy hunger, and hedonic hunger. We touched upon it on a superficial level, but I would like you to deepen down the understanding of this.
Oh, right. So basically, protein is very critical. Like everyone's going to eat until they get enough protein. But you also need enough calories to function. So if you don't eat enough calories, you're going to be super hungry. And then there's also this hedonic, pleasurable hunger where you're not really physically hungry, but you want to eat because you've got donuts and cake and cookies, and these are so delicious. So there are these different types of hungers. And so all of them, you have to they're on a spectrum where you have to eat enough protein and micronutrients. But if you try to make that percentage too high, you won't get enough calories and you're hungry all the time. If you try to eat 50% of your calories from protein, you're just starving all the time because you can't burn protein for energy very well, and then you don't get enough calories, and it's just not good either. So these are all kind of on a U-shaped curve. And then like the hedonics, everyone's going to eat some hedonic foods. The whole idea is to minimize the damage. You try to eat enough protein first, enough micronutrients first, and then maybe eat a hedonic food last as like a dessert, because you're just not going to overconsume as much. If I just got out of bed in the morning and started eating donuts, I'm going to eat a lot of donuts. But if I eat, eggs and lean meat and tofu and protein shake and salad and all this fiber and weight and volume and protein, then I can have like one donut for dessert, and I can kind of balance those. But when you just start out with, something that's like a dessert to begin with, which is what everybody eats in America, then it's really downhill from there, if you know what I mean. So you have to kind of manage all 3 of these hungers. You have to get enough protein and prioritize it first. You have to eat enough weight and volume. You have to eat enough calories to not be hungry. And then you've got to be careful with these hedonic foods, but you have to have enough of them so that you're going to be able to comply with the diet. Because if I just tell people you can never eat a cookie ever again, that's probably not going to work. But if I'm like, okay, if you prioritize protein, eat a lot of protein, eat all these healthy things, and then have a cookie, okay, that's, pretty good balance. So you're trying to find the middle path. It's very, you're trying to navigate all of these U-shaped curves and kind of satisfy all of them. It's a little bit tricky, and it's especially tricky if all the foods you've got are just refined carbs and refined fats and horrible to begin with.
दोस्तों, ये वीडियो अगर आपको वैल्यूएबल लगा तो इसे लाइक कर अपने सारे दोस्तों से इसे शेयर कीजिएगा। इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब तो आप कर ही लेंगे। चलिए मिलते हैं।